Thank you everybody for joining us today. We're going to go over tax filing within Vault. My name is Sarah Beth Russell. I'm going to be your facilitator today, and with me I have Hannah Gunderson. She is also on the professional services team with me. And in addition to that, we have Beth Brewer here with us. She is our tax specialist, so she will also be helping to answer any questions towards the end. We do have a question box that you can submit questions throughout the webinar. So if you do have any, you can drop them there. If you want to go ahead and test that out, you want to put your name and what chapter you're with. We'd love to see that. And then just to also double check that that question box is working for you. And again, if you want to submit questions throughout the webinar, Hannah will be in there as well as Beth to help answer those. And then at the end, we'll just review. Okay, so we'll go ahead. I'm going to pass this over to Hannah for a second, and she is going to give us a little background information on Omegafy.
Hi, everyone. Omegafy provides software solutions and services that help nearly 40 national headquarters, their chapters, and campus clubs and groups from more than 650 campuses manage finances, streamline operations, recruit members, and enhance communication. We've helped our clients process more than $6.8 billion in dues, rent, fees, and more since our founding over 30 years ago, and we boast a 9 out of 10 customer satisfaction score. So we appreciate your guys' support with that.
Awesome. Thank you, Hannah. So to first start off looking at the webinar agenda, we're going to go over a few different things today. We're going to look at some frequently asked questions when filing your 990, as well as we'll look at some things in Vault, and then we're going to go over some best practices to follow when filing your 990, as well as we'll do Q&A at the end. The first question that always gets asked is when to file your 990. So each year, your chapter is responsible for filing a Form 990 with the IRS. Late filing or failure to file is an annual return will result in an IRS late penalty or fine. And then 3 consecutive years of non-filing will cause an exempt organization to lose their exempt status. So keep that in mind. So when is your chapter's Form 990 tax return due? So the Form 990 tax return is going to be due to the IRS by the 15th day of the 5th month following your chapter's fiscal year end, which sounds really complicated, but we have this right over here that gives a better breakdown of that. May 15th for fiscal year ending in 12/31, October 15th for 5/31, and November 15th for 6/30. Now, just because it's submitted in Vault on the 15th doesn't mean it's been submitted to the IRS. So ideally, you want to submit that 990 report as soon as you can after your fiscal year end, so that way it can be processed in time for it to actually be submitted to the IRS by the 15th. 990 report submitted less than 2 weeks prior to the return date, due date, will be extended, and there is an extension fee for that. So just keep that in mind. So again, the dates here, depending on your fiscal year end, are going to be the dates that you will need to file by. Now we're going to go over to Vault really quick. We are on one of our test accounts here. Our president, Peter, we're going to look at their account. So looking at if you're needing to find your fiscal year end, if you have that listed in Vault, you can go to chapter and then to chapter details. From here, you'll be able to see your fiscal year listed. If you don't have that, you can get in touch with our client ops team and they can update that if you have a previous tax return. But more than likely, you should have that here, especially if you filed with us before. And then another thing that you'll definitely need is your EIN, which is also going to be located on this page as well. So make sure you have that somewhere if you need to write it down, but that will appear on the 990 report, so you'll want to make sure that you have that available to you. And to submit your 990 report, you can do so directly in Vault under the Accounting tab and Tax Filing. And this is where you would submit that. So the second thing we're going to talk about for your frequently asked questions is, are your chapter's gross receipts 50K or less? So this is oftentimes answered yes incorrectly, and answering it incorrectly can cause you to have to resubmit the form and delay the process. So it's really important to check your income for the tax year before answering that question. So the steps to take to do that, you can click on the accounting tab here, and you'll go to income statement. And then you can click on the report drop down here, then select whichever report you're needing to look at, adjust the dates for that to match the tax period, and then hit submit. So we don't have any information in our test account here, but it will generate the report for you. And then from the report, you can determine your chapter's gross receipts. If they're more than 50K, you'll then need to reconcile your income expense report. Typically, the most common reason for income expense form imbalance is that cash transactions have occurred during the tax period that aren't recorded in Vault. So often that's because like the organization has an external bank account outside of Vault. So like if you have a checking or savings account with a bank and your organization maintains a lot of that at the local bank, then you may have some discrepancies. So if at any point during the tax year your chapter transferred funds from Vault to an external cash account at a local bank, you'll need to enter those transactions into your 990 report. You'll need to have copies available of monthly bank statements for your organization's external bank accounts for each month of the tax period. And a way that you can avoid having to update a year's worth of transactions, we recommend updating your external bank account on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, and you can do that on the account register. So you can go to your account registers here, and you can actually link a bank account. So you can link that to pull in your transactions, as well as you can do quick entries, which we'll look at. So under this, you'll see like a few different external bank accounts here. One thing to know is that OmegaFi only records like transfers. If you have like a bank account listed, and only records transfers to the bank account. So if we are sending money to an external bank account as it comes in, that, and as well as like that comes from your bill pay funds. However, we don't have access like to the transactions within your external bank account, so we don't know what expenses or incomes go through that. That's why it is the chapter's responsibility to keep that updated. Again, you can link a bank account. We have some articles on how you can do that, as well as you can also go on the register here and then go to add an income. So if you click on whichever bank account is listed that you use, you can go to the quick entry here and click on receipt, put in the date, then the payor, the amount. If you need to split out the income account, you can do so. The more detailed you can be, the easier it'll be to submit your 990 report. So for example, if John Doe makes a payment of $500, but $250 of that is chapter dues and fees, and the other is national dues and fees, then you can split that out to show on the register, as well as you can put any notes as well. And then you can enter the date that it cleared your bank. If it has not cleared your bank, then you can edit that later for when it does, and then you would just click to create the receipt. To add an expense, under quick entry again, you would do the disbursement tab, enter the same information as you did for income, and then click to create disbursement. If your chapter does not have an external bank account and you use bill pay exclusively, you won't need to take this additional step. Vault does all of that for you, which makes it much easier when it comes time for your chapter to submit the 990 report. Looking at that, we've answered a few of those frequently asked questions. When does a chapter need to file? Where to find your EIN? How to answer the $50,000 question, and how to update and maintain your external bank account and why. Now I'm going to go back, if you give me a second, to the PowerPoint, and we're going to talk about some best practices. So best practices when filing your 990 report with Vault. It's best to use Vault for everything if you can. So that includes setting up scheduled charges, processing payments within Vault. That way everything comes through Vault. It's all recorded in there. You're not having to manually put that information. If you need to add additional fees to a member's account, you can do that in Vault as well. You can include t-shirts, fines, anything you need, etc. And then you can also use bill pay to pay your vendors. That way, all of your expenses are going out of there as well. You can order an officer purchasing card to help with expenses that need to be taken care of immediately. And all of those transactions will be held within Vault. So again, you're not having to manually enter any of those things. Additionally, like making sure to process all your payments through Omegafy is important. Collecting locally is just one extra thing you'll have to record when submitting your 990 report. So having to enter in those local payments is also a lot more work on your end. The second thing we recommend is using a PO box for your 990 report and all things related to tax filing. It needs to be a neutral location so future officers can also receive mail there. That's why we suggest that. And then third, to make sure to cover tax filing during officer transitions. A lot of times things get lost in the transition from one officer to the next. If you have a folder you can put together or something like that, make sure your successor knows when your returns are going to be due and if the chapter is current on their filing. That's going to be important in a smooth transition. A lot of times, like I said, that gets lost in the transition, and then eventually down the road, one treasurer ends up being the one to try and backtrack on all of that. So if you keep up to date with that and make sure each treasurer going in knows when that stuff is due, it's going to be a lot easier for your chapter, and then you avoid not having filed, losing tax status, and that sort of thing. So the fourth thing is, so according to the IRS, there are certain records a tax-exempt organization must keep. This includes books and records to show that they're in compliance with tax rules. The organization must be able to document and source the source of receipts and expenditures reported on its annual return and on any tax return it must file. Records must support income, expenses, and credits reported on exempt organization annual returns and tax returns. Books and records must be available for inspection by the IRS. If the IRS examines an organization's return, and the organization must have records to explain the items reported. Having a complete set of these records are going to speed up the examination. So maintaining those records specified by the IRS is going to help you guys out. And that's, again, something you can pass on to your successor when the time comes. We also have our help center. So if we go back into Vault, if you have any questions, you can go to the Get Help right here, and it will take you to our Help Center, where we have several different sections you can look at, but we do have a Vault tax filing section specifically. So we have lots of FAQs here, what to do when filing your tax return. There's lots of different articles. If you are looking for something specific, you can always search that as well to pull up articles specific to whatever subject you're needing. That will help you kind of get started as well with whatever you're needing help with. I am going to go ahead and pull up, we're going to look at some questions that we might have, but I'm going to go ahead and pull up also our information. So if you have questions about pricing or any specific questions about information you need for your 990, you can email 990@omegafy.com, and they can get you help with that before you start going through that process. And then I think, Hannah, what questions do we have?
I am pulling them up right now. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so the first one was asking, and maybe Beth can help us with this one. They were asking, what does filing their 990 look like if their chapter has not previously filed? So I'm assuming maybe they're like a year behind, or they have one that's late, what that process would look like for them.
Hi there, this is Beth Brewer with the Omegafy tax team. If you do not think that your chapter has filed a return previously, I would suggest that you check the IRS exempt organization website just to make sure that your organization is tax exempt. I'm going to put that link in our chat right here. Can everybody see that? I would check there, and if your organization is a new organization, like maybe a new chartered group, it is possible that if a filing has never been done, that you'll need to be the first to do it. And depending on whether your national organization has a group exemption or not, you would be able to file once you were added to their group exemption. Some national organizations don't have a group exemption, and organizations must, or chapters must gain tax exempt status on their own. So it's going to be, your situation is going to be different depending on what's happened in the past, how old the organization is. I would start out with checking the IRS tax exempt organization search. And again, if you have questions, there's something specific that I can help you with, please use that 990@OmegaPhi email.
Thank you, Beth. And then the next question we have, they're asking what their next steps are once they've submitted their questionnaire on Vault.
Well, you need to look out, check your email for any questions. If we have a question, if the tax team goes over the information and has a question or needs additional information, we will be emailing you using the Vault email, your designated email in Vault. And a lot of times that may not be the email address that you use the most. So I would check whatever email address you think maybe is connected with your account in Vault, just to look for questions. And if we can't reach you there, we'll find you via phone. We could text, but just look out for emails. And then the last step before filing is that we would send you a copy of the return and a document called an e-file authorization, and you need to sign that and return that to us to give us authorization to file the return.
Thank you. These next two questions I'm going to put together because they kind of go together. So the first question is, do both the chapter and house corporation have to file a 990 separately? And then the other one is asking, do you guys do 990s for house corporations?
If the house corporation and the chapter have separate EINs, then yes, they do need to file separate 990 returns. We do file tax returns for housing corporations. If the housing corporation uses Vault as their platform and has registers and records on Vault, then a 990 can be submitted on there. If the housing corporation has accounting outside of Vault, then we can provide a link for information to be submitted. And if someone's interested in that, again, email us at 990@omegaphi.com, and I can send the link, the submission link.
Thank you. This question saying that they need help starting and filing their taxes for this past year. They've just had a lot personally going on in their life. So they're a little bit behind, I'm assuming, but they're wondering what they should do. They did say they already have an extension, which is good. So should they start by emailing that 990 email, would you say?
Well, they should start by submitting a 990 report on Vault. And if they run into questions with that, absolutely consult the Help Center. If you can't figure it out from there, definitely email us at 990@OmegaPhi, and we can help you along. Do remember that an extension gives you 6 months from the first due date. So, and there's only one extension.
Okay, thank you. And then I do have a question in here. I'm not going to read it out loud to everyone just because it is talking about like specific dollar amounts for their chapter. But I will say, if you are watching, because I had pre-submitted this question, if you're watching or you're watching the recording, I'm giving your contact information to Beth, and she's going to reach out to you. So we will address your question about the pricing, but since it's so specific for your chapter, we're not going to discuss y'all's business in front of everyone. So we will be reaching out to you on that one. And then our last question that I can see, they just had general questions on balancing their income and expenses for 990s. Sarah Beth, I know you kind of covered that in the webinar, but if you just maybe have like a general advice for balancing out those income expenses for them, I think that would answer their question.
And I'll say that the biggest reason, as Sarah Beth said, for there to be an imbalance, and what we're talking about here is at the top of the form, there's starting cash, there's ending cash, and then the middle part of the form is income, the bottom part is expenses. Well, the difference between Your starting cash and your ending cash must be the same as the difference between the income and expenses to balance and submit the form. And 99% of the time, the reason that there's an imbalance is that money has been transferred out to a local bank account, and the expenses that went through that local bank account are not accounted for in the vault expenses because they've not been recorded in a register. We can offer you some help if the best case scenario is to record everything on vault, use all vault registers, and go forward that way. But if you absolutely cannot get it balanced and we're working on a past year, then reach out to us and we can offer you some assistance with that at the 990@omegafy.com email address.
All right, thank you. I think that's all the questions I see so far.
Okay, awesome. I will leave this email up here for a minute or so, just so if anybody needs it, they can get it down. And like Hannah said, we'll have some follow-up where some of you will be reached out to. So just be looking out for that, and make sure you are submitting your File 990 through Vault when you are ready. And we hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.